Hello and welcome back. This is Fuzzee D Tutorials and my name is Dave. Today's topic is how to construct a 3D overlay effect highlighting a central point of an existing image. We will be doing two versions of this tutorial. This one is in the GIMP 2.10 for Mac. The other version will be how to do this in the vector drawing app for Mac called Graphic from Picta. I'll provide a link to that version in the comments below. If you find this content useful, hit that like button. If you want to see more Fuzzee D tutorials, please subscribe. If you want to know when new tutorials come out, please click that notification bell. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so I've already created a new blank document here, and I created it at 1280 by 720. That's standard 720p video resolution. So I'm making the assumption that you're building this for using on your YouTube channel, but you can make it any size you want. Now I've got an image here that I've made the exact same size, so I'm just going to drag it in. Now I have noticed for this Mac OS version there are some stability issues. To minimize these issues, I recommend using the app at full screen, which you can do by hitting F11. That said, I will not be going full screen as I have identified most of the things that cause issues and will be avoiding them in this tutorial. Now this is a step-by-step tutorial. Now I did a little bit of research to figure out the most efficient way to do this. I don't normally use the GIMP for doing this type of work, but since this was requested specifically for this platform from a user, that's why I'm doing it in this. Normally I use GIMP for straight photo editing rather than constructing this type of images. Normally I would use my other program that I'm going to be doing the second tutorial in. So just keep in mind, although I've found a pretty efficient way to do this, I'm no GIMP guru by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm sure there's others out there that have better ways of doing what I'm going to show you. But this is pretty efficient and it's workable and it'll get the job done. The whole idea of this is to recreate something that some of the users saw on another YouTube channel. Basically we're going to be making transparent or partially transparent light rays that in this case will be pointing towards that microphone in the middle, but you can use it to be kind of zoning in on anything in your image that you want to. The first thing we're going to use for this, we're going to create a new layer. Actually I'm going to create a couple of layers here, but we'll start with this one. We'll call this the 3D overlay layer. I guess I don't need to put that in there. So 3D overlay. And then we'll make another one called overlay highlights. And we'll make another one for extras. And we'll even make one for some text. Okay, so we want to select our 3D overlay layer. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to use the paths tool. So we're going to start here and click where we want to start the path from, and then we go to our next point and we click again, and we keep doing this until we get the shape that we're after. And then when we're ready to finish it, we go back to the very first dot and we click that and close the path. And we're going to go down here and click on selection from path. Okay, now I'm going to go over here to the gradient tool, and then we're going to go down here and we're going to choose to blend from foreground to background, and then we need to go set our foreground. And now I'm kind of an old school Windows graphics guy, so I'm used to working with RGB in the standard 255 number range, so that's what I'm going to switch it to. And we want to set a fairly light gray color. We're going to set it at around the 180 mark in each one. As long as you keep them all even, it'll all come out to a shade of gray. And it's actually more efficient to just type them in. Okay, and then we're going to set our background color here. And we're going to make that just a slightly lighter color. Oh, I'm moving the wrong stuff here. Like I said, I don't use this program a lot. So we're going to go for a range of around 219. All right. Okay. And we're going to come in here and we're going to drag a line from one end to the other, making sure to keep it as close to the middle as we can. Okay, now that I've got that spot selected, alright, this is the one I'm looking for. Now we're going to set our alpha, or our opacity level, because we want the background picture to show through this. So we're going to drop this down to about 40 for now, and we'll see how that looks. Now we'll go back up to the other end and select that one, and we'll go in here and we'll drop that transparency down, and we're going to leave it a little bit more opaque. Now I'd rather err to the side of it being a little bit too opaque than not enough, because we can always go in later and drop the opacity for the entire layer all at once. Okay, now there's a little quirk in this program. We have to go back to the second point that we made, select that, and then we can just hit enter and it'll get rid of that tool. And now we need to deselect, so we're going to hit Command Shift A. You could go up to the select menu up here and just click on none, but I find that using keyboard shortcuts are a lot faster. Okay, so now we just need to repeat this process. So we'll go down here, we're going to start a new path. And then selection from path. Then we go back to our gradient tool. And now that we've set it once, we don't have to keep setting it again. We can go back and adjust it later when we need to. Click on that second one and hit the enter key, and then Command Shift A to select none. And then we just rinse and repeat. Now, rather than taking you through all of this over and over until we're all done with all the rays, I'm just going to take you to one where I've done a lot of the work here. So here we've got a few that are adjusted. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out is on the areas where the entire background is really dark, I actually dropped the opacity down by 10 to 15 points. Otherwise it appears to stand out more than the other light rays, even though it was the same transparency. So those are the tweaks that you need to make as you're going along. I'm going to make an extra layer in here, an extra working layer, to show you a couple things before I actually turn on where we've done a lot of this highlight work already. We'll just call this one temp. Alrighty, and we'll make sure that that's selected. So now the next thing on the image that gives it a little bit more impact is we're going to add some extra little highlights to these rays of light. So we're going to use that same paths tool, and we're just going to go over top, and actually let's zoom in a little bit so we can be a little more accurate with what we're doing. So we'll just drag a square around the area we want bigger. Okay, let's go back to our path tool, and we'll get right on the edge here. And if you happen to be off a little bit, that's probably okay if it's not too bad, but we can always move it later if we have to. And we'll just pick a point, go down here. And in this case, we're just going to be making these really long triangles. And selection from path. Now, it's up to you how you want to do this. You could use that same gradient tool with the same settings and just make the colors a little brighter and make it a little more opaque. And I've done some experimenting with that, and I found that really you can just use a plain solid fill color that's light, and then we can go back later to the entire layer and adjust the transparency of it to get just the effect that we're looking for. And it's quite a bit more efficient. Now if we go here, it might be a little faint for you to see, but there's a little kind of curved double-ended arrow here that you can click on, and it switches the foreground and background colors when you click on that. And then I'm going to go into this lighter color, and we're just going to actually use this here and make it a bit lighter. We want it pretty close to white, but not quite stark white. And then we're going to go to our paint bucket tool, and we'll just fill that. And then we need to do the Command Shift A to select none. And now we're going to go back up here right to the bottom of this ray we just created. And you need to be pretty precise here. And we actually don't need to go all the way down to the end of it, but we got to try and get right on the line where we do wind up. And this needs to be a little thinner of a wedge. And there we go. Selection from path. Now we're going to swap our colors, and we're going to go into this darker color that's now foreground, and we're going to make it even darker. We want it to be kind of a charcoal gray color. And then we'll go back to our bucket tool, and we'll fill that. And once again we select none, and we're going to make another ray just out here in the middle, And I find that if you make it too symmetrical, it doesn't look natural. So we're going to offset it a bit from the other one. Okay, so we're just going to basically make the same kind of wedge as the first white one that we made there. We'll make it just maybe a little thinner. And then selection from path. And our paint bucket. And we've already swapped the color over to the white again. And deselect. Now essentially we're just going to be kind of repeating this and randomizing it a bit as we go, and it's basically same as before, just rinse and repeat. So now I'm going to get rid of this layer. I'm just going to make it invisible, and I'm going to actually make the other one where I've done all this work on already visible. Now I've already gone in and adjusted the transparency of this layer, but we'll just go in and we'll take a look so I can show you how to do this. But first we're going to go up to View, Zoom, and then Fit Image to Window so you can get a better idea of how this looks. And you notice, it's not identical on all of them. And on these wider rays, we made the highlight rays shorter and stubbier so that it fits better. Okay. So now if I right click on that layer and I go up to here and go edit layer attributes, now we can go right here where it says opacity and we can change how we want this to look. So if I can actually grab this, now you'll notice that as I'm moving it around, the symbol is changing, and basically it does this so you can change it by smaller or larger increments with the same mouse movement. So when it's this shape here, it moves quite a lot and you can just drag it back and forth. But if you have it so it's the other way, then it doesn't move very much as I'm moving it. So you can get that fine adjustment. But it's still faster than using these little arrow tools here. So just to show you the difference here, we'll bring it right back up to 100%. And unfortunately it doesn't show you the difference as you're moving it. You have to actually pick a number and then OK it, and it shows you the difference. So now that is really bright, and that might be something that you want for your image, but yeah, for the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to just lower this back down here, and we'll drop it to about 45%. And that just makes it a little more subtle. Now I'm going to create, actually I'm going to delete this layer here that we used. So once again I right clicked, and then from the menu I just choose delete. And now I'm going to make a new temp layer. And then I'm going to show you how we do the happy face here. I'll just show you what that looks like, and then I'll show you how to do it. So that's what I came up with. And there's a few steps to do this. And unfortunately I didn't get the eyes the same size, so it looks a little wonky, but that's alright. So we're going to go up here to our ellipse tool. If I begin to draw the ellipse, if I want to force it into a perfect circle while I'm holding my mouse button down, I just click and hold the shift key, and that forces it to a perfect circle. So we'll drag it to the size we want, and we'll let go of the button, and then we're actually going to go back to our gradient tool, and if we go down here we can actually choose the shape. So if you pop this down, we can go from linear or the bilinear. You know, you've got a whole bunch of different options. In this case we're going to go with radial. And then here we're going to set it from foreground to background, and we can ignore that little warning message. It's not relevant to what we're doing here. And then we're going to go and set our background colors and foreground colors. Now you do have some options up here that I just wanted to take a moment to point out. You've got different types of color palettes. You've got the kind of the printing industry standard of CMYK or CMYK. And there's a couple different ways you can select your colors. And there's even just some basic palettes. And I'm actually just going to use that. So we'll set our one color. And we'll go set our other color to this nice orange. So if you start and draw your ellipse, once you've got your mouse button down, if you hit the shift key, it forces it into a perfect circle. So we'll just get that out to the size we want. Now when you're using this radial gradient, you need to start from the center and go to the outer edge. And if we move over to the line in between, we get a dot that shows up, and if we double click that, we can now grab that dot and we can move it towards the outer edge. So we just get a kind of a nice 3D bevel on that outer edge. And then I can go over here and fine-tune that color a little bit, make it a little brighter yellow. But we won't match the other color entirely, just to make it look a little more natural. And then we need to go back and reselect this one on the end. It's a kind of a weird little glitch, and I don't know if it's a glitch in the program or a feature, but if you don't do this and then close this little thing here and hit the enter key to get rid of the linear tool, when you deselect it, when you select none for your selection area, it'll wind up applying it to the whole screen. So now we go back to our little tool here. Now if you look at the bottom of the screen down here, you'll notice when we've got it up here, you'll see that it's showing the X and Y coordinates. So you just want to take note of your Y coordinate. So we'll do this at 150, and then we're going to draw a little circle here, and then we were going to make note of it again and put it at 190. This is how we're going to ensure that our eyes are going to be the same size. We just have to remember, go from 150 to 190, and we'll go set our color, and we'll pick the black, and we go to our paint can, and then we'll fill that, and then we're going to go make another one over here, and we just watch that area at the bottom until we get to our 150 Y coordinate. Now it looks like it's higher than it should be, but looks are deceiving. And then we hold the shift key down to get the perfect circle, and we go down to the 190. There we go. And we go back to our paint can and we fill that. And then we select none. Okay, and we're going to go back to our ellipse tool. And we're going to draw a nice little ellipse over here, a little bit offset to one side. Now, while we've still got our ellipse tool selected, we're going to go down here and we notice we've got some options in mode. So now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to tell it to subtract from the current selection. And then I'm going to draw another ellipse starting off a little offset from that box corner there. And we'll bring this down. And now that's going to subtract from the first ellipse. And now we'll go to our paint can. And this gives us our little lopsided smile. Now, if you were so inclined, instead of using the straight paint can, you could have used the linear tool and given some 3D shape to the eyes. But for the purpose of the tutorial, this is fine. And we want to select none. Okay. Now the text tool works basically the same thing. So I've got another text layer here. I'm just going to make it visible. Now I'm not very good at working with making fancy effects in the text in this app. So I'm not going to really show you how to do anything with that. We got one last task to do here, so we're going to go up to File, and then we're going to Export, and I've already got a place for it chosen, but you can choose here and pick a place to put it. We've got a name. PNG is fine, so we'll just hit export and I'll replace what I've already got there. So we want to save our background color. We want to make sure to turn on save gamma, and then we can export. Now if you wanted to export to a different format than the default PNG, we can go back up to here and we can go export as. And then we can click on select file type. And you can go down and pick, let's say JPEG. Add the word GIMP in here for my purposes. Okay, now one thing that you want to take a look at doing is adjusting your quality. Now I like to always go with 99%. That way you still get a decent level of compression, but you get virtually zero change to the image. If you leave it on the default, you'll notice a few little artifacts when you go to actually view the picture. And you can make any adjustments in here that you want to, or add a comment that'll get saved with it. But we're just going to work with the defaults here. So that's it for this tutorial, folks. If you found this content useful, hit that like button. If you want to see more Fuzzee D tutorials, please subscribe. If you want to know when new tutorials come out, make sure to hit that notification bell. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time.